this thing on? Hello. Hi.
Amanda, welcome to Belgium. First time?
It's my first time in Belgium.
You know how many years... How come we had to work so many years to finally get you to come here?
I don't know. What was I waiting for? Waffles, chocolate, beer, and you guys? What was I? I'm an idiot.
But we're very, very happy to have you.
Thank you. I'm very happy to be here.
Now, most of us probably know you for Stargate, right? So tell us, how did that part come your way?
Oh, you know what's really funny is I just found an old notebook, an old date book from the year that I auditioned for Stargate, and in it, it says, I gotta tweet this picture, it says, audition Stargate SG-1, Lieutenant Samantha Clayman, because that's what she was originally called, and 12, whatever time it was. And I was like, oh. Anyway, so I just auditioned in Toronto with a lot of other people, and it was one of those auditions where I walked away going, oh well, it's gonna go to an American, so let it go. And I didn't, remember walking up Yonge Street, the main street in Toronto, and thinking, I had fun, just great character, awesome character, but I'm not gonna get it. And then it was a call saying you're shortlisted, they need to see a demo reel of scenes from other shows that you've done. And then it was down to 3 of us. We had to sign a contract before we did the screen test, and then the screen test, which I think a lot of people know the story of, but it was on stage with the executives from MGM. You couldn't see them, so you didn't know if there was 1 or 50 of them, but you heard murmuring. And it was live, they didn't film it, you're up on stage with Richard, Dean Anderson. Yeah, not at all intimidating. But all the actors for all the characters were in the same waiting room. So there was the 3 Samanthas, the 3 Teal'cs, the 3 Daniels, the 3 Hammonds. And I was so nervous that I joked around with Richard. Like, I can't even remember some of the stupid things I said to him, but he was really, he was great. And then after that first round, Brad Wright came out and he said, we love you. What you're doing with Rick in between the scenes, joking around with him, we love that, keep that up. And he said, I think you're awesome. And I was like, and he said, he was just so sweet. And I remember having like a very similar conversation with an actress who was auditioning for Sanctuary and said, Brad Wright said this to me at the Stargate audition, so I'm gonna say this to you. So you're awesome, you have nothing to lose, have a great time. Anyway, a little aside. So I go back in for the second round, Rick's great, more executives arrive, and it's down to 2 of us for Samantha. And they call out your name, they say, if we call out your name, you can leave, which is just awful. So all these actors, and you see them like, and they hear their name and they're like, and afterwards I was like, oh my God, did they call me, did you hear my name? Did you hear anyone say Amanda Tapping? Did you hear that? I don't know, did I hear it? No, okay. But Michael, Chris, and I hung out together at the audition. Like we just sort of gravitated towards each other, and the 3 of us hung out. And Michael and I, in fact, he waited for me, and we took a cab away from the audition together, and I'd never met him before, so it was pretty cool. Anyway, at the end of the audition, they said, can you and Rick just stand next to each other? And they were obviously just trying to see how we looked physically beside each other. And he put his arm around my shoulder, which is like a little swoony moment. And I was like, so I put my arm around his waist, because I'm cheeky that way. And I don't know what possessed me, but I said out loud, so is this like the swimsuit part of the competition? Because they were all just staring at the 2 of us. And then it was like, oh, I could hear crickets, and I went, okay, great, thank you so much. And thought that I hadn't gotten it. And it took a while for me to hear, because there's one executive in Los Angeles who wanted to go super sexy, which apparently I'm not, so, but he lost, which is awesome.
And he was way off mark.
Thanks.
Of course.
Hi Amanda.
Hi.
Thanks for coming, first of all.
Thank you.
So my question is kind of a 2.5-parter.
A 2.5, I'm interested in the half. Okay.
So you've recently directed your first episode on Supernatural.
Yes.
And I was wondering what it was like, and did it help that you already kind of knew the crew as an actress?
For sure. I mean, it was fantastic. I had a great time, and I think Supernatural is like the 39th or 40th episode of television that I've directed, so I went in well armed, knowing what I was doing, but part of it, I was nervous because it's the boys, and they're notoriously goofy.
That was the half of my question, if they gave you any trouble.
No, they were awesome. And, you know, Misha's very heavily in the episode, and Jensen and Jared were great. They did not give me a hard time. Every day I kept expecting to be punked in some way, like something, they're going to do something. But they were lovely. They were absolutely lovely. And most of the crew, because I was on the show in season 8, and I would say probably like it's 60% the original crew from the first day that they started shooting, and they're in episode 12. So that says a lot about the show. It's a very similar vibe to Stargate in that everyone is very supportive and friendly, and I had a wonderful time. Yeah, so I handed in my edit, and I hope that they like it, and that I get to go back.
Hello?
Hi.
Can you hear me? Right. I was wondering, you mentioned Richard Dean Anderson being intimidating. Were you a fan of MacGyver going into the auditions?
No. Now, it's not that I was not a fan. It's like that I didn't like it. It's not that at all. I just never seen it. And I grew up with 3 brothers. So they had their MacGyver time, and I had my Little House on the Prairie time. And that's how, you know, and then there was hockey, because we're from Canada. We're growing up in Canada. So yeah, I didn't, and I had never seen MacGyver, and I'd seen pictures of the fabulous hair. So, I mean, in that first season when we were doing Solitudes, and Martin said, look, if you have any chance, because we were in a frozen sound stage, there was real ice, it was cold and miserable, and awesome all at the same time. And the crew was freezing, and Martin said, if you have a chance to have some fun, go for it. And I was like, you mean like outtakes? Like, have some fun? And he was like, yeah, just go for it. And that's how the whole MacGyver thing. Literally, Rick was crawling up the glacier looking so earnest, and he's got his knife, and he's pulling himself up, and he was emoting like crazy. It was so sweet. And I thought, this is the moment. The moment has just arrived. And so that's when I went off on the MacGyver, McGimmick, McUseless. And afterwards I thought, he's either going to laugh and think that I'm the most hysterically funny human he's ever met, or he's going to fire me. But it wasn't until all the words came out of my mouth that I thought that, which is usually the case, right? So like, Mr. McUseless, I'm stuck on a glacier with MacGyver. Oh crap, oh crap. But he didn't fire me, so that was nice.
What about Richard Dean Anderson? With Jack O'Neill, the romance between you and Jack O'Neill?
Oh, we loved playing that. Every time there was an alternate reality or an alternate timeline and we got to like kiss or flirt with each other, we loved it. Shamelessly. And I'm happily married and have been for 22 years, but it was fun. It's really fun. And he's still, you know, like we're still very much in touch and text each other and talk whenever we can. And he's a relentless flirt. He's wonderful. But we loved it. And then there was scenes where the crew was like, okay, cut, guys, we've cut. Rick, Amanda, we've cut. Sorry, I think we need another one. We should go again with the kissing thing. Yeah. Not a hard job. Not a hard job.
Hi, Amanda.
Hello.
Can you say sir in 5 different ways?
Can I say what?
Sir.
Sir? In like 5 different languages?
Sir, 5 different ways.
What? Give me some good direction there, Claire, if you want me to do it. Like, should I be angry? You give me 5 different ways to do it, and I'll do it.
Talking to Sam, talking to Jack.
Sir. 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 That's 3, right? theoretical astrophysicist. Can't count beyond 3. Where was I at? Sir! Sir! Yeah. That was harder than the audition for Stargate. Don't do that. You're not allowed to ask questions anymore. Just cut off.
Hello. I'm going to bring you back to Sanctuary, actually, with my question. I was really sad when John Druid died, and it kind of felt like it didn't finish between, I have a blank, your character and John. So my question is if, I have a blank on the name of your character in Sanctuary.
My character's name, Magnus? Helen Magnus.
Helen, thank
Yeah,
you.
I had to think about that.
If Ellen had found a way to save John, so he would still be alive, do you think that they could have salvaged their relationship they had back in the 19th century?
I think that was always Magnus's hope, that they could get back to that wonderful, idyllic time together. And I think that's part of the reason that they've endured through the many, many decades that they've been through together. I don't know that they could ever get back to that, but I think that the hope of that is what keeps them going, right? If that makes sense. But if she could, in season 5, if we had been given a season 5 and rebooted, the whole new Sanctuary, then in our hearts and minds, Ashley would be back, because Helen would have found a way to bring Ashley back, and John would be back, and yeah. I know. I wish I could. Yeah. We're a very unique show, Sanctuary, because it was independent television series, privately financed, no major studio. Thank goodness for all the countries around the world who bought it. But it was every year was, it was a Jenga puzzle to try to get that show together. And when we fell apart, it was only because Sci-Fi hadn't made a decision fast enough, because they'd been taken over by Comcast, blah, blah, blah. And we lost our studio, and then our backers were like, well, we had a sweet deal on the studio, and when we lost that, everything became infinitely more expensive. And the financiers who owned the show essentially said, no. So it was bad timing. Thank you.
Great costumes.
What's that?
Great costumes.
Great costumes, though. Excellent costumes. Good.
Hi. Thank you for being here and for being so nice with us today.
Oh, thank you.
I would like to know if you can talk about Sanctuary for Kids. What's new about your organization?
Well, you know what? This Sanctuary for Kids, for those of you who don't know, sanctuaryforkids.org is a charity that I co-founded with Damien Kindler and Jill Bodie in 2009, or 8, 9? Anyway, it's coming up on 10 years. And it's a charity where we wanted to work with very small charities, have a relationship with them, and fundraise through the generosity of fandom. It was something that I realized very early on, that sci-fi fans are infinitely more generous than your average human being, which is amazing, and infinitely kinder and more accepting than your average human being. So I was very much aware that this was an amazing fan base to try to take further. So Sanctuary for Kids, we work now with an orphanage in Nepal Orphans Home. We work with Ash in Nepal, which rescues trafficked women out of sexual slavery. They're also in Nepal. And Next Generation Nepal, which deals with trafficked children and reuniting them with their families. We also work in the downtown east side with a group called Watari, whose mission is to help young youth basically get off the streets and transition into productive lives. And they're doing amazing work. And we work in Haiti as well. So, and then if there's a major disaster, unfortunately, then if we have it in our coffers, we will help during those times. And usually try to do it through an organization that matches the donation, or the government matches the donation, so get more bang for your buck. But the charity's doing great. The orphanage is doing really well. They're actually getting ready to consolidate. We gave them a fund a number of years ago to help buy a piece of land in Kathmandu so that they could bring all the houses together, because right now there's 5 houses separated. They're not that far away from each other, but the idea was to take Papa's house, which is the big house, and put them all together with some outbuildings so all the children could be in one place. And that's happening. That's on its way. So, and they've got an architect who's done all the free drawings, and the land, finally, the Maoists, I think, are allowing us to have the land. So it's been a bit of a struggle, but it's going great. Everyone's doing very well. And the fundraising efforts of individuals and the fandom are really what drives our charity. So it's been phenomenal. And we think by the time, we hit the 10-year mark, we'll have raised over $1 million. And that may not seem like a lot for over that number of years, but it's amazing for a very small grassroots charity. So super proud. Thank you. You guys, proud of you guys.
Hi, Amanda. I was wondering if you could tell us about your best and your worst audition experience as an actress.
Whoa. Well, the best was this show I never thought I'd get, because I thought it was going to go to an American. It was called Stargate. I can tell you about my worst. I've had some really great auditions and not gotten the part and felt really super like, what? My best was actually for a play, and I did get the part. It was for The Lion in Winter, and it was one of my first major auditions. And I just felt I didn't know any better to be so scared, so I had a really great time. Now I know better and I get scared, but, and my worst, I don't know if I can, it's for a show that's on the air right now that I'm sure a lot of you would have seen. And I thought, oh, well, I dig this show. I'll go in and audition. And I had one of those, I don't know if you guys have seen La La Land. Okay, so I had one of those audition experiences where the director literally had his cell phone in his hand and he didn't even look up when I walked in the room. And I have no, exalted sense of self, but it's like after 15 years solidly on television as the lead of the series, you'd think the guy could just at least look up and say hello. Anyway, it's all these moms waiting in the waiting room. We all have little kids and we're all trying to, find parking and what are we going to wear and getting childcare and makeup and hair, all the things that you have to do to get ready for an audition. And this guy doesn't even look up, and it's like literally a minute and a half of his time. So I do the audition and I'm really stymied by this guy because I just think it's so phenomenally rude that he won't look up. And he's like this, and I do the audition, and the casting director is clearly embarrassed. And I said, would you like to see that again? And I'm looking right at the guy. And he doesn't even look up, he goes, nope. And I was like, and so the casting director said, you know what, Amanda, if you could do another take, because she's obviously thinking down the line of the network and whoever. So I do another take, guy still doesn't look up. And she says, okay, well, thanks, Amanda. And he looks up and he goes, back to his phone. And I turned, and before I left the room, and I'm not proud of this, but I kind of am, and I said a swear word, but I said, what an a-hole, really loudly. And the casting director was like, and I said, no, I don't care, that was phenomenally rude. The amount of time it took me to prepare for this audition, and it's like 2 minutes out of his life, and he can't even look up from his phone? Sorry, but that's BS. And yeah. Needless to say, I did not get the part. But I thought, I don't ever want to audition for someone like that again. And I want him to understand that there's a whole thing that happens before actors get into a room. Not only the prep time to learn the lines and the respect that we pay the material that we've been given, but also the respect of the process and the respect of the show. And the very least you can do is look up from your smartphone. And oh, he was late, too. The guy was 20 minutes late and strolled through this room of actresses waiting and went, hey, ladies. And I was like, ugh. And then that happened. And then I walked out, and the girls who were in the waiting room waiting to go in are like, Amanda, did you? And I was like, I did. I can't believe I got to my car and burst into tears, as you do. Because I was like, oh, because I don't usually stand up for myself in that forceful a manner, but I'm glad I said it. Then I IMDb'd the guy, right? Because there is a true mark of, good director is often invited back to do future episodes of shows he works on. He's only ever done one episode of every show he's ever worked on. And I was like, that tells me everything I need to know. Goof. I mean, that was my worst. That was one of my worst, for sure. I have another one, but I can't tell it. Okay. I'll tell you later.
Hi.
Hi.
Do you see yourself as a role model, especially for girls in the STEM fields, as both your bigger roles as Sam Carter and Helen Magnus were essentially scientists?
Right. I didn't when I first started out, and then I started to receive letters speaking to the fact that the characters I was playing, not me myself, but the characters I was playing were inspiring for young women, and I became acutely aware of the responsibility of that. So if there were things that I felt were not in keeping with the character or belittled in any way the work that the character was doing, then I would have a talk with the writers about it, because it became very important to me that if in fact young girls were looking up to this, especially Sam Carter when it first started happening, that I had a real responsibility. And I took it very seriously, and I still do. I think it's not just going for what you want in life, but it's having the courage to be smart, to be the smartest person in the room, and to stand up for yourself. And I think that that's really hard, and I don't think it's something that's necessarily encouraged for women and young girls, even in our schools. So the fact that some of the letters attest to that is so humbling and wonderful. Yeah. Thanks. That's for you.
Hello. A few years ago, Christopher Judge was here, and he told us a story about a certain rule that was enforced on the set of Stargate.
There was a few.
Because of him and Richard. More about the control room.
And the food that they were...
No, the farting. They were...
Yeah.
Now, I was wondering...
They were disgusting.
Has there ever been any rule enforced because of you?
No. No. No, I don't think that there's been any rule enforced because of anything I've done. Like maybe, they would try not to make me laugh on set. Well, the boys would try to make me laugh, but the crew, because I would cry. I'd never, like tears of laughter streaming down, and then the makeup would run, and it was always a reset if they made Amanda laugh. But I don't think there was any rule specific to me. There was definitely rules about the boys, like no beans on the catering truck, and especially if we had a control room day, that we were really specific with what the caterers could serve for lunch, because the crew did not want to be stuck in that room with Richard and Chris, and Michael to a much, much lesser degree, but Richard and Chris had like ratings on their toots. It was like, whoa, for length and sound, how loud it was, if it had a lyrical quality to it, smell, which is awful. And at one point, Rick was like, taste, let's judge it on taste. And I was like, no. I think Michael and I might have left the room at that point. Yeah. It's awesome. Comeuppance, of course, is when Chris had to wear a full NASA spacesuit and get bolted into it. And I think we may have requested beans on that day. And you may or may not have seen him turn a greeny, sort of gray shade. It was pretty cool. We all heard it and went, oh, because he's stuck in this, like, yeah. How's it taste, Chris? Poor Chris.
Hello.
Hi.
I want to ask 2 small questions, if that's all right.
Yes, of course.
How was working with Misha on Supernatural, and did the voice ever prank you?
Misha is wonderful. He's a wonderful guy. He's a goof. So when I was doing the show as Naomi, he was my touchstone on the show because we had the most to do together. And the boys never pranked me. I mean, he pranked me on Twitter. He would tweet things that weren't true. Like that I was trying on his underwear and yodeling in his trailer or something weird he tweeted. I can't remember exactly what it was, but... and then the only thing they ever did was warn me that the fandom was very, very supportive of each of their characters and that I would not be very popular. Like the scene where I've killed all the deans, or I've had Misha kill all them. There's thousands of deans lying, and Jensen was like, just gonna be so hated. And I was like, okay. So, no, they were great. And like I said, when I just directed them, you know, they were wonderful. Their scene, like they would drop, there was a scene where they both had to fall, Jensen and Jared, and they dropped out of frame and started like being goofy. And I had the camera tilt down just so I have it on the demo or the blooper reel. But they were good. They were good boys. Yeah, I think April 27th or something. Yeah.
I'm really happy to see you for the first time. Thank you very much. I just want to know if you are still in touch with the rest of the cast of G1 or Atlantis.
Yes, yeah. So Michael and I see each other. Our kids go to the same school. I haven't actually talked to Chris in a little while, but I saw him probably about 2 years ago. He's the one that I probably lost touch with the most, which is sad. And Rick and I were just texting each other last week, so, yeah. And I run into Terrell as well. I haven't talked to Hewlett in a while. I think I owe him a phone call. But I see Jewel, yeah. So, I'm still in Vancouver, which is where I've chosen to work and raise my family, and so the community is quite small. So I see Polly McGillian and... yeah, they're all around. Gary Jones just got in touch recently. He's always funny. Do you guys remember Gary? Yeah, it's great. Anyway, yeah.
We've got time for one more question.
Oh my God, really? Wow. Okay.
Hi, Amanda.
Hi.
Thank you for coming. I have just one question. I know that there had been possibility of new Stargate movie. Stargate, pardon. But had been dropped. How do you think a Stargate movie would need to make a difference with Star Trek reboots and new chapter of Star Wars around, in your opinion?
Well, in my opinion, what do I think they would need to do to make that? Now, this is the Roland Emmerich Stargate, right? This is their original concept, of which we're not invited to that party, sadly. I think that if they wanted to make it really great, they should have SG-1 in it, but anyway. I don't know, you know, it's an interesting, and I think that it's been shelved again for a little while, because I think of exactly of what you said, because there's so many reboots of the big, but the thing with Stargate, and in fact, any franchise like that, is that the vis effects have become so much more sophisticated. I mean, even over the course of us shooting the television series, how we got the gate effect from the beginning with Mylar and lights and everything to at the end when we just literally walked through, it was like a remarkable difference. So I think it could be quite spectacular to reboot it and see what comes up, just because we have so much more technology at our fingertips. And I think that the briefing room the control room in the gate would look a lot different than all the blinky lights that we had. The like 1960s Air Force equipment that we had in there. Anyway, yeah, it would be nice to see it, for sure. Thank you. Really, is that it?
That's it.
Damn.
Time flies when you're having fun. Give it up for Amanda Tapping!